someone who's promised to cherish our past and help us build our future. And he's been a model for many years. And that was him then. Here he is now. Let's have a roar for Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the Labour Party!
Thanks. Thank you, Durham. Thank you to everyone that's come here today. And I think we should always remember those that went before. We mourned those that had gone at the start of this afternoon's proceedings. And I particularly remember my old friend, Rodney Bickerstaff. But I never want to ever forget Davy Hopper and Davy Guy for all they did for the Durham miners for so many years. The way that they decided that the big meeting had to go on, that sense of togetherness had to go on, that sense of community had to go on, and that even with pits closed and gone, the spirit of the mining communities would never die and would never ever disappear. And this big meeting has always had an international theme to it. Today we heard from Ibrahim of the cause of the Kurdish people and their demand for peace and justice in the world. And we hear that call from so many others, because their freedoms are our freedoms. Our internationalism is not about imposing nationalism on other people, it is about respecting the rights of people all over the world to live in decency, freedom and enjoy the human rights that we've won for ourselves in this country. I have to say, there is a degree of celebration going on a bit south of where Donald Trump comes from. I think we should congratulate the people of Mexico on electing Andrés Manuel López Obrador as the president. And I particularly thank Len McCluskey and Unite for the support they gave over many years to the mine workers of Mexico, including when their leadership of Napoleon Gomez had to live in exile, and the union supported them. That's practical, international, real solidarity in action, which is what we are made of and what we are proud of. But this meeting is a message about power. The power of people, the power of hope, and above all, the power of the unity of our movement across national borders to bring about social justice and change in the way that Bernie Sanders explained in the video message that he sent us earlier today. This meeting goes on because people support it. And we've got here something Lara's going to hold up. There. This was left for me last night when I arrived. No, not that bit. This bit. Support the Maris, support the campaign, support this festival, because it needs to go on forever. Because it is about celebrating our past. Yes, of course it is. But it's also about where we go forward to in the future. This is the 150th anniversary of the foundation of the TUC. It is a very important historical moment to celebrate. I'm old enough to remember the centenary celebrations in 1968 of the TUC. We're now on the 150th. But the foundation of the TUC was a coming together created by the trade unions, whereas other parties around the world have created unions in their own image. I'm proud to lead a party that's founded by the trade unions, supported by trade unions, and I am proud to be a trade unionist leading the Labour Party. It's also the centenary of the Fire Brigades Union. You heard from Matt Rack earlier, and no one will ever forget the speech he made here last year, just after Grenfell. I was on the Grenfell March, the silent march, on the 1 year on from that terrible night and that terrible fire. Awful, awful experience for everybody. The power of a silent march around the streets, recognizing that human solidarity with people and that incredible support given by firefighters, ambulance workers, police, volunteers and so many others to help people in their most desperate hours of need, and continuing the psychological and community support that's so necessary. That's community. Those that want to deregulate our health and safety in this country. And it beggars belief that in the country's richest borough, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, there is the greatest gap between the richest and the poorest of any part of the country. In Goulburn Ward, in the north of the borough, it is one of the poorest places in the whole of Britain. Not far south, 15 minutes away, there are people of unbelievable levels of wealth. I simply say this: Kensington, you should be ashamed of yourselves in not rehousing all of those people in 1 year on. And I would also say gently, well maybe not so gently, to those very wealthy people living in some parts of Kensington and Chelsea, and indeed in other parts of this country. A Labour government is coming into office, a Labour government dedicated to reducing inequality, a Labour government that will increase corporate taxation and taxation of the very richest in order to pay for the services that the rest of the community absolutely need. It's a Labour government that is going to do so much more in so many ways. We glory in our National Health Service, and rightly so. The legacy of the next Labour government will be a National Education Service, because the principle behind it is we take the commodity out of education and replace it with the right to education and the right to know. Right for every young person to study a craft, an apprenticeship, a degree of equal value and equal importance. A nation needs engineers, a nation needs electricians, a nation needs gas fitters, a nation needs teachers, nurses, and so much else. When young people don't get the education they need and deserve, they lose, we all lose. Let's invest in our future, invest in our young people. But also help our young people in school and college and university understand where we come from, understand where our rights have come from. Nobody gave the right to vote to people. Nobody gave women the right to vote. Nobody gave the right not to be discriminated against. All those rights were won by popular action, by people, by trade unions and political parties coming together and demanding them as a way of gaining their freedom and their liberation. And so I would like our schools in future to teach the history of the Labour movement. I don't want to go into a school, speak to A-level students who are ever so polite and put their hand up and say, excuse me, Mr. Corbyn, what's a trade union? I want them to know that, because they will have learnt it in school. The struggle of those who combined together under that tree in Tolpuddle in the beginning of the 19th century, in mining communities all over the country, because they knew full well workers combined together in a trade union are much stronger than individuals being picked off by an employer and split apart. It's not a complicated concept. And so I want our children to understand that and the contribution trade unions have made to safety at the workplace, to wages, to conditions, to international solidarity, and so much more, because they are part and parcel of our lives and of our national story. But a Labour government will deliver on education, and I'm determined we will deliver on housing. I do not want to live in a country that tolerates people sleeping rough on the streets while the mega rich keep their homes empty as investment opportunities for the future. I want us to invest in decent housing for the future, and I'm determined that a Labour government will do that. We will build council housing with lifetime tenancies on social rent. The post-war Labour government achieved much of that. It's got to be done all over again. We've had 8 years of austerity. We've had too long when people look for all sorts of other clever solutions to the housing crisis. I don't know any solution to the housing crisis that doesn't begin and end with building good quality, sustainable council housing. And Aaron Bevan, who was the Minister of Health that brought in the National Health Service 70 years ago, was also the Minister for Housing. And we celebrated his achievements in Tredegar a few weeks ago, the town that brought us the National Health Service. The Tredegar Medical Aid Society was the forerunner of the National Health Service. But I recognise, as we all recognise, the NHS is wonderful and should be celebrated. It should not be diced up, sliced up, carved up or privatised. It is ours not to be sold off. But our health depends on many things. Our health is not just what the doctor can do for us, what the hospital can do for us. It's also the quality of the air we breathe, the quality of the house we live in, the stress we face at work, the stress young people are put through, and the mental health crisis that goes with it. Or often older people denied the social care that they deserved. I want our whole country to be in better health, therefore better paid, better housed, better educated, and better able to lead their lives to the fullest possible extent. But it's not just about that, it's the creative in everybody that is there. You saw the banners coming in, you see the incredible artwork on those banners, you hear the music and the creativity that goes with it in all those bands, the improvisation. You see all around the country young people doing their best on music, wanting somewhere to rehearse and so on, and young people wanting to act, wanting to make films, wanting to do all the creative things. I want to lead a government that says, great, we are a creative nation, we are creative and innovative people. Let's make sure, under Labour, every child in every school gets to learn a musical instrument. But it's also about jobs and economy. Others have pointed out that over the past 8 years, poverty and inequality and injustice have increased in this country. Wages have been frozen for a very long time. Real wages are actually falling for many people. There are almost 1 million on 0 hours contracts who don't know how much they're going to earn from one week to the other. And there are another 400,000 children living in poverty over the last 8 years. And as Dennis pointed out, that number will inexorably increase the longer these wretched Tories remain in office. It needs a Labour government to invest. And with the hand-holding with Donald Trump back in vogue again, I fear for a race to the bottom on our rights, our regulations, our justice and our work. We have won rights to holiday pay, to maternity leave, to paternity leave, to work in a safe environment, and the right to join a trade union. All weakened under the Tories. I want to lead a government that strengthens all of those rights and encourages people to come together and join a trade union. And to lead a government whose bottom line on negotiations over Brexit are defence of jobs, defence of living standards, defence of decency within our society, and trade, yes, that guarantees jobs. The alternative is what Boris Johnson, Liam Fox and many others offer, which is a hands-on trade deal with Donald Trump, which will bring you chlorinated chicken, GM foods, a race to the bottom, an end to all the regulations that we the Labour movement, have won over very many decades. We're not giving up, we're not going away, we're going to fight for those jobs. But I say to our friends all across Europe, and I've been in many European countries over the past 3 years, we are with you on an anti-austerity strategy. We are with you in demanding an end to inequality and injustice. And I say to those in our own movement in other parts of the world, if you think going into office is all about managing another round of austerity and another round of cuts, you will create a political vacuum that will be filled by the far right and the racists who will blame the minority. Our strength, our importance is to bring people together for economic justice, an ending of inequality, and yes, an investment-led economy. And so I want to lead a Labour government that gives workers the power so that Carillion